All right, fantastic. So my name is Brad McMillan. I'm the owner of RPM Research, which is an executive search firm that works in the preclinical and clinical drug development space. We work in a variety of positions in senior scientific operations and business development. So just happy to be here and to continually meet and network with you guys. So what we're going to be talking about today is some interview skills, resume preparation, and how to continually do professional development on your resume. So let's get started. So let's talk about how to control a conversation before you ever get in the room. So yes, we're with the Charlotte Biotech Club and resumes and interviews, but not the way most people look at them. This is not about templates. This is not about buzzwords. This is how understanding how hiring decisions are actually made and how to control the process as much as possible. And the goal of your resume is to get a conversation. The goal is not, your resume will never get you a job. Your resume is designed to get you a conversation. And there's things that it is not. It is not a regurgitation of your job description, key lines and bullet points. It's not just a list of responsibilities. And despite AI out there, it is not all about keyword stuffing. And so you want to create some intrigue with your resume. You want people to have a reason to have a conversation, to find out more details. And so, what it can do is can earn you 10 to 30 minutes of human attention. And that's what we want on the interview. That's how we get jobs, is through interviews. And so people have asked me as a recruiter, what is the most important keyword or key phrase that I can put in my resume? Honestly, it's numbers and metrics. They just naturally, your eye is drawn to it on the resume. You want to see the impact. And so the numbers can be impactful. It's going to show scale. It's going to show business understanding. And it's not just adjectives. Numbers are actually going to tell what happened and what you actually did. So we've got to go backwards and think, why does a job exist in the first place? And so you have an open position. The problem that's trying to be solved is to save time, save money, or improve process. And every open job exists because something's wrong, something's broken, something's slow, expensive, or inefficient. And so with the metrics and the details that you're going to provide in your resume, you want to show how you've solved those problems. And this is going to make you a more relevant candidate for the job when it gets in the hands of the hiring manager. And if you're not differentiated, you're just going to blend into the stack. And so some of the things that you want to look at in the interview and how you present your information is looked at as the starch principle. And you want to think with that in mind as you're preparing your resume. So we're going to talk about the situation, the task. So what company were you in? What did you do? What did you actually impact and have results with? What was the context? You want to be able to tell this story and how you got there. And so being prepared for that as you're writing your resume bullets is going to help you in your interview. And that's what this is all about, is getting further into interviews. And when we're looking at resume bullet point, I want to quickly touch on the difference between features and benefits. Feature is what something is. A benefit is what something does. So an example, car features what? 4 doors, an engine, red paint. Okay, that's what it is. But the benefit of it, so it's going to get you to work. It's going to support your family. It's going to connect you to the world. That's the benefit. That's what it actually does. So your bullet points need to describe those benefits, not just the features. And so we have any salespeople in the room? Okay. All right. So this is this is for you and what you should be looking at on your resume and as you're presenting. So who did you sell to? Were you selling to CROs, academia, biotech, biopharma? What was your client avatar? And what did you sell? Were you selling CRO services? Was it in vivo services, in vitro? Were you selling products? What was in the bag, so to speak? And what did your territory look like? people don't, understand that from the beginning. So did you have a local territory, a regional territory, or especially in the case of companies that are starting business in the United States, did you have a national territory? And that's going to show some of the scope and making sure to capture your numbers. And the way that the numbers can be used on your resume can depend on the story that you want to tell. So did you grow a territory by $3 million or $30 million? $30 million is honestly going to, turn some heads unless you already were in a $30 million territory and you changed it by 3%. So was that a 3% gain or a 30% gain? So as you're looking at the different numbers, what's going to catch the hiring manager's eye? What's going to be impactful? So choosing those numbers that tell the strongest story that can be relevant for the role. And so if we're looking at scientific resumes, what are some of the things that I look for? What are some of the things that the hiring managers look for? What modalities did you work in? Was it small molecule, large molecule, RNA therapeutics, oligonucleotides, if you're selling in services? Was it in vivo, in vitro, or both? There are a lot of resumes that I see in the conversations that we have where somebody either puts one or the other, and it doesn't tell the whole story and can cause people to just pass over your resume or assume that it's not there. Especially in the CRO space that we work, was it regulated? Was it GLP or non-GLP? We see some academia, people coming in, and there's a fun phrase saying out there that GLP like. We hear that, and GLP is kind of like pregnancy. You either are or you aren't. There's really no middle ground there. And so, what were the regulatory frameworks? Was that FDA? Was that EMA? Who were you working to? What's your regulatory experience? And what did you specifically contribute to the organization, to the project? Going back to some of that starch principles. And one of the areas that I work in is lab animal veterinarians. So what are the things that we're going to look for or would be important to tell the story? So what species? Was it rat and mouse only? Was it large animal? Did you have non-human primate experience? What was the scale? Did you have 10,000 mice, or did you have 500 monkeys? Was it mixed species? We want to understand the scope. How big was the facility? How big was the vivarium? Was it multiple buildings? Were you responsible for traveling back and forth? That's going to show your organizational skills. And what SOPs and protocols did you enact, change, update? That's going to show how you're going to contribute above and beyond the bullets of the job description. What was your team size? Who were you managing? Were you the only veterinarian in there? Were you the only contributor? Were you part of a team? And for people that are managers out there, what was not only your training, but your mentoring and your impact on that? So we can extrapolate those into other resume aspects. Now, if you're in a leadership or operations role, you want to show your capabilities. You want to show your impact, your decision-making, and ownership. So what happened before? What was the problem? What did you do? What was the outcome? And so operations leaders are getting hired when they prove that they reduce the chaos. And especially for management resumes, you want to look at the I versus the we balance. If all I see and the hiring manager sees is I statements, I did this or did this and impacted this, that's great. But if you're a leader, then that sounds like you're taking credit for other people's accomplishments. But if I see all we statements, then myself and hiring managers, will beg the question. Sometimes it'll be asked or not. Do you lack initiatives and projects? And so strong leadership resumes are going to have a balance of both of those aspects. And so for our scientists out there, some are PhD, some are master's degree individuals. And so there can be a debate as to whether you put your education at the top of your resume or at the bottom of your resume. And I think it's situationally dependent. If you want to tell the story and have them read some of the details about your impact before they make a snap decision based on whether you have a PhD or a master's, then you may want to put that at the bottom. But you also need to understand that sometimes there are hard requirements that you're going to absolutely need a PhD. Sometimes people will have flexibility. So just take that into account as you're writing your resume. And your length and summary. So we see the summaries and the bullet points and all the fun stuff, on the front page of the resume. And your professional summary, contact information, bullet points, whatever you want to do, look at the page of your resume, and it should not go below the first third of the fold of the resume. You want to get into the meat of your resume. If you're not getting into your experience and impact on the first page, some people are just going to pass it over it. You've got to understand that you've got probably 10 seconds to 20 seconds to show somebody that you were able to make that impact, especially when there are a lot of applicants and trying to make experience stand out. And resume length. If you've got over 10 years of experience, stop looking at one page, stop looking at 2 pages. There's some people that would be dogmatic about that. I think you really need to show your experience and your impact, but there is going to be a balance there. And so stop apologizing for more than 1 page. And I love this picture down there. We've got the sheepdog that has decided to pretend to be a sheep. Don't lie on your resume, because you might end up getting the job. And then you're in a situation where you have to perform, where you're not experienced, and you're just gonna sit there and be stressful. And then you're gonna be judged on that impact. That's gonna follow you around for different interviews and conversations that you were not able to be impactful. So we need to be honest. No Pinocchios out there. And just telling the truth. And so we're going to talk a little bit about interview preparation. So what needs to be done before you ever get in there? And how much time should I spend prepping for an interview? And this is going to sound like a lot, but if you're going to be getting ready for a 1-hour interview, you should be spending 3 hours of preparation time. And 30 minutes, at least an hour and a half. And if you're going on site and going to be meeting people and meeting teams, you need to be spending a significant amount of time learning about the organization. You need to understand the role, and you need to understand the people and how you can fit into that. Well, Brad, what do I need to do with that? Just remember, the goal of the interview is not to get the job. The goal of the interview is to get to another conversation with another hiring manager and move yourself down the pipeline. And once you've had a couple of conversations and you've shown your value, then the tables turn. When you're going on to an on-site interview, you should be looking at this a little bit more critically and asking those questions that make you feel comfortable that you would take this position if you didn't need a job. It's a little bit hard to get to that mindset when you're hardcore looking for a job, but you need to get in that mindset of, would I have done this independently? And so too many people will reverse this and try and pull people out in the beginning. And I think you're going to disqualify yourselves, early in that situation. So what are we researching? We talked about, 3 hours of preparation. What does that look like? So you definitely should be studying the job description, not a glance over, but you should be looking at this bullet by bullet, looking at your impact, looking at your stories and key contributions. What about the company and the technology? Have you followed them? You're not necessarily followed them, but have you researched on LinkedIn, on the company page? What do they post about? What do they care about? Where is the company going and how can you make that impact? Looking at the hiring manager, looking at their LinkedIn profile, where did they come from? What was their experience? Is there any commonality? The team patterns. So if you know the hiring manager and you can distill who would be individuals that report to this hiring manager, look for commonalities on their LinkedIn profile. Look where you could fit into that team, but don't totally fall into that trap because they may be looking for a differentiator. Be prepared for both. And when you get in the conversation, that's a fantastic question for you to ask that you're prepared for. And looking at the job board that they have is another good place to look at. What else is the company looking for? Can you extrapolate what trajectory the company is moving on and moving towards, and what the impact of this role might be? And you got to study your resume. It's definitely what the hiring manager is going to be looking at. For hiring managers that are not preparing properly, they're going to be reading that resume on the interview for the first time. So they're going to be asking questions, and it's difficult because it's part of my life. It's part of what I did. I lived that experience. But what you're going to do when you want to appear more confident in a conversation and in an interview is going back over your stories, going back over your experience. What that's going to do is pull that from your long-term memory into your short-term memory. What that is going to do is decrease your response time by fractions of a second. And those fractions of a second difference are going to show confidence. And that's what people are looking for, is going to be that, confident in that role. Oops, sorry. And then also who held that role beforehand. What were they looking for? What was their impact? And if you don't know your experience and stories, you're going to ramble. Sorry. And you want to watch out for some of the elevator pitch traps, especially with open-ended questions. Why this job? You need to have a preparation for that, and it needs to be concise. You do not pull this out at the same time where you're going to ramble. Your 5-year plan. Well, I want to be in this company with more responsibility and more money. That's not a great response. You need to be looking further through that. And tell me about yourself. Well, I'm a Capricorn, I like long walks on the beach. I've liked science since high school. That's not what they're looking for. So you need to be prepared for those answers, because those answers are going to take up key real estate in the conversation. You only have so much time to talk. An hour sounds like a lot. It really isn't. And you want to leave time for yourself to ask questions and for the hiring manager to ask follow-up questions. So we talked about the first interview. The goal is to get to the second interview. And one thing that I want to talk about is the mirror trick. So if you're on a phone call, you need to understand that you are going to come across differently. There are non-verbal communications that happen even on a phone call. People can hear it. So I've got 10 years of experience. I've been in recruiting for 15 years. I've started this company I've been in recruiting for 10 to 15 years. I've built teams. I've built scientific, thought leadership. There's a difference when you smile. It comes across. If you're in an interview, you definitely want to do the same thing. And, answer the question asked, but then answer the question asked concisely. But would you like more detail? Some hiring managers want more details in their explanations, but start concise and then extrapolate from there. And always be closing. So at the end of the interview, from what we discussed, is there any reason you would see me not moving forward in the process? Answer those questions. Don't make the assumptions. Always close. And so I want to talk to you guys about a system that I created called the Keystone Resume. And it's basically the Rosetta Stone of your career. And this is not the resume you send out. You can send it to me. I love it. I think it's fantastic. But this is the resume that everything else is built from. And so when you're applying to multiple jobs, or when a career opportunity that's unique comes along, what do? Oh, I'm interested. Let me grab my resume. Let me submit it. We talk about how resumes should be tailored to each individual job. Well, how do you do that? Rewriting your resume takes a significant period of time. Hiring managers are going to read them differently. Executives listen differently. And this Keystone resume lets you translate all of that value across all of them. Keystone resume, you can create, 9 different versions of your resume in a weekend. And so what it contains, every role that you've had, every metric, every bit of background piece, every story, every project that you've worked on. And it's going to have full project details, metrics that may not always show, because we said that numbers are impactful, and context that you can deploy in interviews. It's your source document. And like I said, the raw material for your resumes that go out. So how do we do that? We are keeping a professional journal, and that's weekly, bi-weekly, I don't know about daily, for about 5 minutes. This can be digital, or this can be handwritten. I like handwritten for myself personally, but if you are short on time, you're driving and you just pull out your phone, hit record, talk about what you did, what the starch of the situation going back to that, and focus on what you worked on, what changed because you were involved, what your assumptions were, and what actually happened. When you look at the assumptions versus what actually happened, that's gonna show your learning, and you can tap back into that for interviews. So, what was the impact, and what changed? And so your resume is written long before you need it. If you're writing your resume as you're applying to jobs, you are way too late. And the strongest resumes are going to be built not during the job search. And if you are writing your resume 5 years after your last update, you're going to lose a significant amount of value of what you've presented. So your day-to-day work that you're doing already has a lot of this gold. Don't let that slip away. And so your experience, it's about capturing and translating that. And why this system works. You're consistent with it. It's going to show confidence, because what did we talk about? You're taking the information from your long-term memory and being able to bring it back to your short-term memory. And you can control the conversation and what your impacts are. Cut, copy, paste, keep the format simple so that it's easy to copy and replicate. Creative resumes don't work. Especially as we're looking at AI and ATSs. We have ATSs that are parsed into our system. The people that have the unique and creative resumes shows up all garbled when you have a resume parsed coming in. So you're going to lose whatever creativity you think you have in there. And when your resume, your interview answers, and your career story align, that's going to build trust in your experience. And that's going to be the trust that moves you forward. And so we talked about the STARS principle, and how should you be journaling? How should you be having these conversations? Situation, task, action, result, challenges, and how. And understand that you're not writing prose, you're capturing evidence, you're looking at metrics, you're showing impact. And so this is used for resume tailoring. When you're getting ready for an interview, you should be going back over this. Like we said, going over your resume and journal for an hour, you're preparing for 3 hours. And this is going to be able to show some of your career transitions. And I hope that you can see how this will tailor resumes quickly, prepare some of your interview stories, and if you're transitioning across roles or industries. So here's an example of somebody that has some pretty solid, features and benefits on their resume. So this is from a 2-year stint of where the individual had. So he had the reason for leaving, company downsizing, external stakeholders. He did talk about the name of the company, what it was, and then also put the website of the company. just because you knew what it was doesn't mean that everybody else knew what type of company and focus that came from. Give them the opportunity to look at that. So he was focusing on some of the therapeutic areas, his impact, guiding projects, advisory boards, and some of his experience where it talks about the impact. And so some of the projects, so development of training materials and SOPs for AI, which were shared with the team to improve efficient use of time. So what was that? So what was that impact? Was that positive feedback? Did your experience win contracts, increase revenues? So that's some of the examples of features and benefits. And this was some of the distillation of his Keystone resume. So how are we going to do this? What I would say, journal consistently for 6 months. And you can either write down your experience, or like I said, you can speak it into a recorder. And a lot of the recorders nowadays have transcribing capabilities. So you don't even have to be 100% organized with it. Speak with it. Tell the story. It can be disjointed. You can go to the front, the back, all of that. Not how you would want to explain it, but if you copy and paste that text into ChatGPT or whatever AI you want to do with the specific instructions of turning this into a resume, bullet point using the START principle, you're going to be able to kick that out. You're going to look at those key points to put in your ChatGPT query. And so this is how you can update your resume in about 10 minutes and update your Keystone resume in about 10 minutes. And you're going to have a current metrics-driven resume anytime you want it, anytime you need it. So that right opportunity comes up that you're interested in, you're going to be prepared for that opportunity. And luck is the intersection of opportunity and preparation. Man, you got that job. You're so lucky. Now, I was prepared. And you need to understand with the use of some of the AI, it's not the author. You can keep your voice authentic, but it's going to provide structure, compression, clarity, and you can work with it on word count, showing the impact. You are the architect of your resume and how it's going to be built. So this is leverage, not replacement. And make sure your questions are specific because we don't want to lie to the resume, right? ChatGPT makes mistakes. So the competitive advantage that most people ignore is this is going to help you avoid the resume panic. My company was just downsized. I know that this is coming up. What do I do? Oh my God. And you're not going to forget some of your impacts because you're studying and you're preparing for these interviews. We talked about how you're going to be able to respond faster, and this is going to provide a clearer career narrative. So this is not a document. This is a system. This is something that you keep up with consistently. This is a habit. If you embrace the goal, you need to build the habit. And this is not about tricks. It's all about understanding how decisions are made, save time, save money, improve process, and showing up prepared. And when you control the story, you control the conversation.